Nice to be here. Thank you. Good morning. Are we? Oh, no. Good afternoon. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. I think everyone in this room is acutely aware that Canada and the world are facing considerable geopolitical shifts. Times are changing, and strengthening Canada's defense posture is now a real and urgent national goal. So far, the federal government has responded with the most significant defense investments in a generation. In fact, Budget 2025 committed more than $81 billion over 5 years. And as Canada works towards dedicating 5% of federal spending to defense by 2035, including 1.5% to infrastructure, it is critical that local governments are fully engaged in both knowledge and delivery. Because delivering on this urgent goal depends on the strength of the communities where defense operations actually happen. Across the country, bases are expanding, core infrastructure are under pressure, municipal systems are facing rapid growth and real capacity challenges. And all of this points to the simple truth. Defense readiness is built locally. Municipalities are the order of government that enable and support Canada's sovereignty across the country. We build and maintain roads, airports, water systems, housing, and transportation networks that make Canada's defense posture possible. And because so much of Canada's defense capacity depends on the strength of local systems, municipalities need to be considered an equal partner at every step of the defense planning process, because local infrastructure is defense infrastructure. When we invest in dual-use infrastructure, we build stronger communities and reinforce Canada's security. These are win-wins for every order of government and for Canadians. To tell you more, I invite to the mic FCM's first Vice President, Tim Tierney.
Grand merci, Madame President. Thank you very much, Rebecca, for that. First of all, this is exactly why we're here today, to meet Canada's defense ambitions. We need a coordinated, practical way to bring local expertise directly into the defense planning and delivery. As a result, I'm happy to launch FCM's new Defense Task Force, created by co-chairs Connie Glenn from Kingston, along with our good friend Will Cole-Hamilton from Kootenay, British Columbia. This task force was born after FCM's Municipal identified the cross-country's need for coordinations on these specific issues. The task force represents communities across Canada with defense installations that serve premier venues for local dialogue and expansion of defense readiness. Its purpose is clear: to turn local realities into national solutions, and to build the defense capacity faster and more efficiently. That includes 1, strengthening intergovernmental collaboration and accelerate the defense-related infrastructure. 2, expand the investment in dual-use infrastructure that supports both communities and national security. And 3, address local constraints in housing, transportation, water, and energy systems. In practical terms, this means solidifying the partnerships to move projects forward at a faster and more rapid speed and scale, whether it's coordinating early with municipalities on base exemptions, aligning timelines on major wastewater upgrades, and fast-tracking transportation links, keeping defense operations moving, ensuring that the infrastructure is already supporting our defense outcomes and fully aligns with the defense investments. Excuse me. Things like municipal roads that serve the primary access routes for the bases, the local airports used for training and deployment, or for water and wastewater systems that sustain our military housing and the surrounding communities. And that means tackling the local pressures that are achieved with these kind of great ambitions. From housing shortages in fast-growing communities to energy constraints that limit the operational capacities, or even the transit gaps that make it harder for military families to live and to work in the communities that they'll be serving. The Defense Task Force is how we're going to deliver real results. Standing with me today are two of those colleagues in municipalities that we really see it can make a difference. They firsthand see the opportunities that this task force will bring. Now I'd like to pass it over to our wonderful Mayor, Mayor Knack. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. And as mentioned, in Edmonton, we're seeing many of the same dynamics as other communities across the country. As a major urban center supporting our defense activity in our region, we're managing rapid growth, evolving operational needs, and increasing pressure on local systems. Edmonton has a critical role to play in Canada's supply chain. We are the closest major metropolitan area to key strategic locations in the Arctic and the North, which is critical for national sovereignty and long-term defense capability. Edmonton is a leader in innovation, AI, research, advanced manufacturing, and life sciences. Our contribution strengthens Canada's security, resilience, and self-reliance. Our city's infrastructure is already serving a dual purpose. This task force matters because it shines a light on the work it takes for cities like ours to maintain and renew the systems that support both civilian life and national defense. And it gives us stronger collective voice to advocate for what we need. Defense funding for dual-purpose projects isn't just good for Edmonton. It directly benefits the military members and families who live and work alongside us. It gives cities like ours a place to bring forward what we're seeing on the ground and work together on practical, scalable solutions. This task force gives us the structure, the partnership, and the shared voice we need to move forward with confidence. It ensures that local realities inform national decisions, and that the communities supporting Canada's defense readiness are supported in return. And what we've heard today reinforces that connection. Municipalities are already doing the work on the ground, and with the launch of the Defense Task Force, we now have a clear path to do that work together. So communities across Canada are already essential to the country's defense readiness. Municipalities are a part of Team Canada, and strong municipalities means stronger sovereignty. And I'll turn the mic over to Will.
Good afternoon, and thank you. So, as a councillor for the Comox Valley and co-chair of the National Task Force, I want to speak to you about why this work matters and why we felt we had to begin this work. And Mayor Knack mentioned military families, and I come to this with some lived experience. I grew up in a military family. My father, my grandfather both served in the Navy. My grandfather was lost in World War II, and my father was a carrier pilot who did search and rescue in dangerous conditions, lost a few colleagues over the years, and was often away for long stretches of time. And another challenge for military families is being moved. So often you don't have family, you don't have friends you've known for years, you don't have that favorite park or restaurant that you used to go to that provides security and stability. And that's why communities are even more important, I think, to military families than to many others. And I certainly know for me, like as a kid, that was important. And what I want to say here is that's why I personally understand that communities that support military bases have a fairly heavy role, burdened shoulder, that's the way you say it. And these bases, of course, they rely on our wastewater systems, our water systems, parks, transit, roads, housing, as well as our ability to provide some protection to those who protect us through police, fire, and emergency services. And that's why we want to say this plainly, that local governments are essential to defense readiness, and that national sovereignty is founded on a bedrock of resilience at the community level. And it was that understanding that led me to want to take on the role of co-chairing this national task force. And in the Comox Valley, we have CFB Comox adjoining the city of Courtenay. So we've been working as a military community since World War II. And we've lived with the pressures on our government systems that changes at the base bring to us. And we learned fairly quickly that the best way to manage those changes was to plan ahead through real collaboration. And that's why I, as chair of my regional government, instructed my chief administrative officer to put together a staff-to-staff working group composed of staff from the 3 municipalities, from Comox First Nation, from the school district, and from the base, and of course from our own regional government. And last month we had almost 40 staff get together in our rooms. They spent most of a day working together to identify key priorities. And the 4 they came up with are community services, housing, recreation, and transportation. And as we all know, these are the systems that underpin all of our communities. And when communities are under strain through rapid growth, you need to make sure you're managing that. It was a successful start, but we're not stopping there. We'll be inviting the RCMP, our local Chamber of Commerce, and others to join this group as we work together to align what we're doing, to understand the future that's coming towards us, and to make the very best of the opportunities that are available. And again, this is why building local strength ensures national defense capacity. And this is also a prime example of why this task force is so important. Because communities like mine and those around me, my colleagues, are doing this work already on the ground. We're already living the connection between local government and national defense outcomes. The task force gives the structure, the partnership, and the shared voice to bring these realities forward. It ensures that local expertise will inform national decisions, and that the communities which support Canada's defense readiness are themselves supported in return. And that's why I'm really proud and happy to be launching this task force and to stand with my colleagues here. And I will, at this point, pass the mic on to my colleague from Quebec City, Councillor Marianne White. Thank you.
Merci, Will. Bonjour à tous. Ça me fait très plaisir d'être avec vous aujourd'hui. La Ville de Québec s'est jointe à cette équipe de la FCM pour la défense et je pense que c'est un rôle extrêmement important que les municipalités ont à jouer dans le développement futur des infrastructures défense, en fait la bonification de ces infrastructures. À la Ville de Québec, on est très conscient du rôle que jouent les infrastructures municipales pour soutenir les efforts de défense du Canada. Nous avons sur notre territoire des actifs dont l'importance est à la fois cruciale pour notre population, pour les chaînes d'approvisionnement, pour l'économie du pays et de plus en plus pour la défense également. Prenons l'exemple du port de Québec. C'est le dernier port en eau profonde avant les Grands Lacs et parce qu'il peut accueillir des navires à pleine charge, il est une porte d'entrée stratégique pour les chaînes d'approvisionnement nord-américaines et transatlantiques. Le port a mis de l'avant un plan d'investissement majeur sur 10 ans de plus d'1,7 milliard de dollars qui prévoit la reconstruction de ses quais. On le voit bien, la modernisation des infrastructures portuaires ne servira pas seulement au commerce local. Dans un monde où la résilience des chaînes d'approvisionnement est maintenant une question de sécurité, ces investissements permettront d'assurer le transport fiable des marchandises, des équipements et des matériaux. Et ce n'est pas tout. Le secteur de la construction navale également se modernise. Au chantier naval d'Évis à Lévis, juste de l'autre côté du fleuve, notre ville voisine, des investissements de plusieurs milliards de dollars vont permettre de construire et d'entretenir une flotte de navires de guerre du Canada pour les décennies à venir. La production de sous-marins, de navires de défense continentale et d'autres actifs navals dépendent d'infrastructures municipales résilientes et modernes. À la base militaire de Valcartier, dans le nord de la ville de Québec, il y a également un projet d'agrandissement et de construction de plusieurs milliers de logements dans les années à venir. Donc, ces exemples-là nous donnent un aperçu des nombreux projets municipaux qui sont en chantier un petit peu partout dans nos municipalités et de la nécessité aussi de prendre part à cette discussion et d'être partie prenante avec le gouvernement fédéral dans ces investissements. Quand les priorités nationales changent, les responsabilités municipales augmentent aussi du même coup. C'est pourquoi cette équipe spéciale de la FCM sur la défense est si importante et je me réjouis que la Ville de Québec en fasse partie. Pour des villes comme la nôtre, cette équipe va nous permettre de parler des mêmes réalités auxquelles nous sommes confrontés avec nos partenaires des autres villes. La première rencontre que nous avons tenue aussi nous a permis de réaliser assez rapidement que nous avons beaucoup de choses en commun d'un secteur à l'autre du pays. Nous allons pouvoir comparer nos défis et partager aussi nos solutions. If I can just say in English, I'm really delighted to be part of this defense task force. In our first meeting, it was really clear to me that we had a lot in common from coast to coast. So Quebec City is happy to be part of that team. Nous allons apprendre les uns des autres, hein, évidemment, et ensemble, nous allons pouvoir soutenir les objectifs du Canada en matière de défense, parce que c'est dans nos municipalités qu'on bâtit les fondations pour que ces objectifs ambitieux du gouvernement fédéral se réalisent. Merci.
Thank you to all our speakers. We are going to start the questions and answers. Unfortunately, Mayor Mack does have to leave for another appointment. Mayor Mack, thank you very much for coming. So we are going to take questions from the media. I'll call on you. If you can just say your name, your outlets, and who your question is for. We just go pretty smooth, pretty quickly. We'd also ask that you just keep it to today's announcement. If there's anything else, feel free to follow up with us. We're more than happy to. Yes, you guys want.
Emmanuel Berthelès, Radio-Canada, ma question va être en français. Oui, bien sûr. Si vous pouviez donc résumer l'objectif de l'annonce aujourd'hui, c'est créer une équipe de travail pour convaincre le gouvernement fédéral d'investir dans les infrastructures. De quelle infrastructure on parle? Là, on parle de Québec, mais d'un point de vue national, de quoi ça pouvait avoir l'air?
Oui, exact. Donc, cette équipe, en anglais, on dit task force. En français, je pense qu'on peut parler d'équipe de travail sur la défense, permet de réunir toutes les municipalités où il y a des bases militaires, notamment à la grandeur du pays, de travailler ensemble aussi. Un de nos objectifs, c'est de convaincre le gouvernement fédéral de contribuer au financement des infrastructures mixtes, parce que les bases militaires sont installées dans des villes, hein, évidemment. Les militaires, les familles qui y vivent utilisent nos routes, nos aqueducs, nos égouts, vont dans nos écoles également. Donc, les municipalités sont des parties prenantes et veulent en faire davantage pour favoriser les investissements que le gouvernement veut faire en défense. Mais on doit faire partie également de la solution. On a besoin pour ça d'avoir davantage d'investissements parce que tout ce que le gouvernement fédéral veut faire pour que ce soit construire des logements sur les bases militaires, des investissements majeurs dans différents secteurs, eh bien, les municipalités ont besoin d'investissements pour être en mesure de répondre à cette demande-là, qu'on parle de construction de routes, d'aqueducs, d'égouts, etc. Donc, ce qu'on demande, c'est que le gouvernement fédéral investisse avec les municipalités pour bien mener à terme son ambitieux programme d'investir, on peut le rappeler, plus de 81 milliards de dollars selon le budget 2025 en matière de défense.
Justement, 81 milliards de dollars, avez-vous un objectif financier? On veut que 3 milliards aillent aux municipalités ou pas encore?
Non, on n'est pas rendu là, mais je pense que ce qui est important de dire, c'est que les municipalités sont des partenaires essentiels du gouvernement fédéral dans cette nouvelle aventure, si je peux dire. On n'a pas vu des investissements en défense aussi importants depuis des décennies et les municipalités ont leur place et jouent un rôle extrêmement important. Je pense aussi, on le voit, les discussions que nous avons eues à la grandeur du pays sur ces enjeux-là. Les investissements vont mettre une pression sur les municipalités et je pense que c'est important qu'on reçoive notre juste part de financement pour y arriver.
As president, you are launching a major offensive with the federal government. Traditionally, defense is a strictly federal jurisdiction. Why does the FCN believe that in 2026, cities must become actors in national defense, and that does this change for the average citizen?
Thank you very much for the question. As was outlined in my initial comments, it's significant investment from the federal government into national defense in terms of a plan. Over $80 billion is part of their commitment, and in doing so, those investments are going to have significant impacts in the communities in and around the surrounding areas where those investments will be made. And what we've heard here today is that municipalities, the government of closest proximity to the residents that we serve, also know exactly where infrastructure, where housing, where community services will need to be also reinforced to absorb that type of investment into bases that we fully support. And so what we heard also from the co-chair of the task force and is the ability for municipalities to convene other stakeholders, other groups that are going to be key partners in delivery in terms of this national defense investment, including RCMP detachments, including chambers of commerce. So municipalities have a unique position, are uniquely positioned to both match what the local demand will be while also enabling meaningful impact in terms of that national defense investments. Thank you.
Chris Brown, Cross-Border Network. My question is for Vice President Tierney, Councillor Cole Hamilton, and Councillor Bligh. You can see that she's in the audience right now.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought about when I read task force is a bunch of politicians sitting around and just talking to each other.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, in 1 year's time, if say FCM was in Halifax, what's the tangible action item that you would want to see happen in 1 year's time to ensure that this isn't just a bunch of politicians sitting around the table? And the reason I asked Vice President Tierney is because you are incoming president.
Correct.
And in 1 year's time, I might have a follow-up question that is going to precede this.
I'll be watching for you, Chris. Don't worry about that. You're quite correct. I think that's the message that we're all carrying, whether it's this task force or in general with FCM. We want the non-sexy items. We want to see infrastructure, and we need that to happen at a very fast pace. What an opportunity when you have such a great amount of money being spent by the federal government related to defense, and that requires all the things that are required, like pipes and sewers, water, and transportation. So you can come back a year from now, but I feel pretty confident even in a lot of the discussions that have taken place with the ministers already. We just had one with Minister LeBlanc. We'll be pressing on the other parties as well. We think this is a good investment, and it's going to actually help accelerate the objective of the government as well.
And Chris, it just needs to okay. No worries, follow up that. Will, if you like to add one.
Yeah, it's a really good question, Chris. And I think what you'll probably find will happen, and what did happen at our initial meeting, is something very similar to what happened when that staff-to-staff meeting was convened in my regional district. It was initially a status check. How are different communities in different parts of the country addressing their relationship with DND and with the bases in their communities? What's working? What isn't working? What could be successful in the future? We also worked to identify what common areas of interest were, and they were very similar to the ones that staff group came up with. Transportation, housing, recreation, essential infrastructure like water and sewer. And I think there's also an ability to inform local elected folks from across the country who don't have a vast research department to help them stay up to date on DND policy. And it also works the other way. I've heard from staff that DND have been extremely interested in understanding local governments and how we work. And as an example of that, I was texting something to my base commander 2 days ago, and I mentioned FCM, and he just said, FMC ? And I said, no, it's FCM, this is what it is. He says, oh, okay, because in my world, FMC means fully mission capable. So there are things like that, and I'd like to think that FCM is FMC as we approach this. We are fully mission capable. But, and I would also, and this will be one of the next steps coming along, would like to see in future meetings integrating the Coast Guard. As you probably all know, that the Coast Guard now falls within that envelope of spending, separate from the Canadian Armed Forces. But that brings the implications of increased spending to a much, much larger group of communities. And so getting all of those folks integrated and up to speed. So a year from now, I'd like to see us have identified all the needs, have a strategy going forward, have a strong working relationship with Department of National Defense. And I just want to say how much I appreciate DND for really leaning into this. I think the base commander in my region is a real early adopter, and it's been great to work with. And I know that at the task force at our second meeting, General Kerrigan, the Chief of Defense Staff, is going to be joining, signaling to me some real interest in collaboration. So I'd like to see some collaborations in place, and just a much more informed group of local governments, so we're all ready to handle this wave of change in a way that allows us to maximize opportunities.
Sticking follow-up question with the councillor who's up to the podium. Federal government it's going to roll out some money, but the provincial government also has a responsibility to as well. I'm talking local here, Alberta, Cold Lake. Highway 88 has been the bane of their existence, and if you talk to the mayor of Cold Lake right now, he will say, with the new airplanes that are coming into Cold Lake, they need to fix the provincial highway that is going out there, and that means municipality, province, and the federal government come to the table. From your perspective as co-chair, how important is it to have all three levels right now at the table when we're talking about defense?
I think it's definitely something we have to consider over the course of the years, like as we can sort of get a sense of where all of we are as local governments and then how we can integrate the province. But I agree, the province is absolutely essential. You can't have a base unless you have things like schools, which are all provincial jurisdiction. And where I live, all roads outside municipalities are provincial jurisdiction. As a matter of fact, the base commander called me and said, we need to get some bike paths on the way to the base because I got folks living here and my base is over there. And so I coordinated, along with the mayor of Courtenay and the base commander, we appealed to the Ministry of Transportation, all three on letterhead, and mentioned cap funding, which certainly perked up interest. And we're moving forward that. So like showing that collaboration can indeed lead to, in this case, it's project by project piecemeal, but maybe there's a more coordinated way of making sure that collaboration brings in provincial resources. But I think you point to a really important factor. There are three orders of government, as we all know, and usually we're the one that gets left out, but this time it's the province, and we'll make sure they get an invitation coming up.
So we got time for one more.
Yeah, sure. Eric Bowling, Edmonton Journal. I'm just wondering, what sort of challenges are facing military families that you've identified? Which ones are you going to try and tackle first?
I think, a lot has changed since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I think my mom said the rough line by the Navy is if the Navy had wanted you to have a family, they would have issued you one. And families were viewed as an impediment or a burden or something that had to be moved around. And I think the military has come a long way in seeing that completely differently. They now see that military families are what allow people to serve. And I think there's an analogy to be made between local governments. We also allow the DND to do what it does. And I'm thinking that change in thinking along both lines. I see DND looking at the people who support them. So I think, based upon my own experience, that having good parks and recreation centers and for spouses to be able to get to work through transit or other means, having all those things on the ground, so that particularly when you've got a service member who's away for many months on deployment, military spouses rely on communal resources like no one you've ever seen, and it's so vital that they're there. And I think that everyone I've spoken to as a base in their community understands this really clearly, and this will just help us to support the people who keep us safe.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. That concludes the
Right,
press
thank you.
conference. Thanks very much.
And we made that the most inspiring.